No Morgan, no Mitch, no John, no problem. The Leafs find a way to get an impressive team win over the St. Louis Blues. We'll break down the victory and discuss the verdict on Rielly's suspension. All of that and more coming up on today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leafs Center podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. I hope someone used the promo code to get $20 off a ticket to go and see that game tonight down at Scotiabank Arena. The Maple Leafs defeating the St. Louis Blues 4-1. No Mitch Marner. No Morgan Rielly, no John Tavares, no problem. It was a next man up mentality. And honestly, pillar to post, I thought the Leafs may have played their best game as a team tonight. It was impressive stuff, man. How impressed were you by that victory?
Well, considering the chaos of everything that's been happening over the last few days with the Morgan Rielly suspension, the incident there, then you find out John Tavares is sick. Mitch Marner, you didn't find out until 5 o'clock that this guy wasn't going to play in the game. Alex Steves is getting probably a phone call saying, you need to get your butt here. We need you to play in a hockey game tonight. Of course, like a pro he is, he gets in there. But it's not just that they won the game. They flat out dominated.
Yeah.
This is a team that's without two of their top paid players, their number one defenseman. You know, they're coming off a pretty tough loss where a lot didn't go right against the Senators, and they took on a St. Louis Blues team that was like surging. This is a team that got themselves into the playoff picture. They're in a wild card position. They flat out dominated.
They did.
If you're not impressed, if a Leaf fan is not impressed with this victory, I don't know what I could say or do to convince you otherwise.
Are you not entertained? Is almost what they should have came out and said afterwards. Just to point to some of the stats to prove how dominant the Maple Leafs were tonight. They outshot the Blues 32-15. They outchanced them 30-19, 14 of which were high danger chances, only gave up 8 high danger chances themselves. And we look at the expected goal differential, or the expected goal percentage. The Maple Leafs won 72% of the minutes. 72% of the minutes. I'm going to give you a piece of trivia, okay?
Uh-oh.
Bobby McMann had an expected goal for rating of 63% tonight. No, 61% tonight. 61.81. Where do you think that ranked amongst the rest of the team?
Unfortunately, I saw your tweet, so it's been your trivia's been busted. I know it was very dead last on the team.
But like that sounds like it's a bad thing the way that I phrased it, but that is such a compliment to how well this team played that Bobby McMann, the guy who had a hat trick tonight, had the worst, essentially, the worst game according to, expected numbers and analytics and whatever, which some people look and say, see, that's why analytics are terrible. But still, at 61% for a fourth line player who only found out that he was supposed to play like hours before the game. I mean, that's still very impressive stuff. But the fact that everybody on the team had an expected goals above 61% is just flat out impressive, and just, goes to show how dominant this team truly was from pillar to post.
It was. Yeah, as you just said, Bobby McMann was not supposed to play tonight. And he has a hat trick.
Yeah.
Like you can't script it any better. Like people say the NFL scripted. This felt like it was scripted for him to come and have a hat trick like that. And there were so many good.
What is it, Dave? Like what is it about this team when their backs are against the wall, when people doubt them, and when they're shorthanded like this, where they actually finally dig in and end up playing well and win games. It seems like just when you think the Leafs are going to falter, that's when when they zig, they zag, right? When they should win a game, they don't. When they shouldn't win a game, they do. Like what is it about this Leafs team? It's somewhat infuriating in a way, is it not?
To me, I think what it says is how much when it was talked about all off season about how the identity of this team has always been about the core four. Everything's about the core four. What it tells me is the rest of the team goes by the lead of the core four. So if the core four is not bringing it, chances are the rest of the team isn't. Well, guess what? Going into this game, I guarantee Sheldon Keefe said, we don't have two of the core four. Other guys have to step it up. And other guys are like, okay, like we legitimately have to, because if we don't, nobody else is going to do it. And to me, this is where I get frustrated with how this team has identified itself, how kind of Sheldon Keefe has orchestrated the way the lineup is done, is because he plays those guys, especially Marner Matthews, over 20 minutes a night. And It tells me two things. A, seeing a game like this, he should be trusting the lower guys on the lineup, because look what they just did when they were pressed into more duty.
Well,
And two,
yes and no.
yeah,
I mean, tonight they played well. Tonight they did
yes.
extremely well. But why can't they do this on a regular basis?
And that was my other thing too, is why does it take a situation like, I don't know if the Morgan Rielly situation really got them going, or just the chaos of the Tavares and Marner not playing and that throwing a wrench of the whole plans. To me, it's just like, where is this, right? Where was this before? That's what annoyed me. It's you kind of laugh at it, like in the first period, you're like, huh, of course the team is playing this dominant. Of course they're playing this well. I can imagine other people are pulling their hair like, where is this? Where has this been for the first 50 or so games of the season? Where has this been? And to me, if I'm Sheldon Keefe, he's got to be like, all right, these guys are playing like this. I'll give them that opportunity now.
This now, and it's not going to be. I hope I'm wrong when I say this, but I'm not sure this is going to be the case. But this should now be the standard. Like Sheldon Keefe should have walked into that room and said, "Boys, you played a hell of a game. You played your asses off. We got the victory. We got the 2 points. Everyone doubted you, but you stuck together. You played detailed. You played structured. You played with purpose, and you played pretty, mistake-free hockey, and you won the game." Won the hockey game. This is now the standard. This is what we have to do to get to where we want to go. What they did tonight, that's kind of Stanley Cup playoff hockey. That's how Vegas plays. Vegas does that. That's how Tampa plays. That's how Colorado plays. They swarm you when you have the puck. They're all over you. That's how Florida plays, right? You have the puck. They pressure the puck carrier all the time. Right. And that's exactly what Toronto did early and often. They forced turnovers. It allowed them to spend a lot of time in the offensive end. And, a good way to defend your own net is to make sure you spend a lot of time on the offensive side of the ice, which Toronto did a lot of tonight, which obviously was probably part of the plan. But I think that a way that they're able to do that was just because they're all so connected. Like you had Nick Robertson back checking, breaking up plays on the back check. You had Noah Gregor, doing some of that stuff as well. You had Nylander going back. I thought that the team as a whole really committed to playing very well connected. When the puck was in the defensive end, you saw 5 guys below the hash marks, and there was quick, crisp passes, simple plays to get the puck out and break the puck out. When you don't have all of these elite skill players, it does force you to simplify the game a little bit. But honestly, simple works. You saw it tonight. Now, credit, Sheldon Keefe did come out after the game and he tried to, kind of pump the brakes a bit and say, we didn't get St. Louis's best. And he acknowledged that, they didn't play at their best tonight, which allowed maybe Toronto to look a little bit better than maybe they were. But still, I think if you play this style of game, if the Leafs can play this way going forward, they'll win a lot more hockey games than they had the previous 50 games. This now has to be the standard. It's got to be. Like, I'm not saying they're going to go out and win 72% of the minutes going forward, but at least play with this play this simple hockey game, play with this level of connectivity, with this level of structure. That's what wins games in the NHL playoffs. Start that now. Don't wait till game 82. Let's get it going game 50. So by game 82, it's habit. It's all habit at that point.
I think the two things here, we came on previewing this game saying if this team was going to have any chance of winning, it was going to have to be a 5-man unit on the ice. With the blue line shorthanded as it was. And that's what we got tonight, right? You see Nick Robertson get a turnover. What's Nick Robertson doing? He's busting his chops going to get that puck back. He's not allowing that turnover to be the thing that, puts the team in a brutal position, right?
Right.
And to me, that's what's been missing. You turn over the puck, you got to make sure you're the one putting in the most effort to try to make amends for that, right? And that's something that's been missing the last, this whole season pretty much. And so, yes, this has to be the standard going forward. Is it going to be something you can easily mirror game to game? Probably not. Teams are now going to kind of expect it, maybe a little bit more, but the effort, I think it's not even just the execution of it. It's the effort that we need to see going forward.
Well, it's now you look at the last 2 seasons, and you can put tonight's game now there as well. Without Morgan Rielly in the lineup, weirdly, the statistic is this team is now 16-2-1 in their last 19 games without Morgan Rielly in the lineup. And it's not to say that the team's better when Morgan Rielly isn't there, but they seem to play different and they seem to play more simple because they can't rely on, those long stretch passes, and they don't rely on the coast to coast, plays that Morgan Rielly can do where he can jump up into the rush. They just, simple, quick 5-foot outlet passes. It takes a couple of passes to transition into the neutral zone as opposed to trying the stretch pass, which often, got batted down this season. It's just a different way of playing, and it's a simple game. And honestly, it worked tonight. You're right. Now teams maybe will be expecting it. You got Philly coming in a couple of nights. I guarantee you're going to have John Tortorella, who's going to have that team prepared and ready to go to negate that. And they'll say, hey, this is what they're going to do, and this is what we're going to try and do to try and combat that. So it'll be interesting to see. Hopefully Marner and Tavares are back by then. They were sick. Not sure what the reason is or how long this sickness is going to last. But if they're back on Thursday, there's going to be a spotlight on these two, and it's going to be there, and it's going to people are going to demand that these two play a certain way in that game, and it's going to be similarly to how everybody played tonight. It's got to be.
It has to be like the standard. We've seen it now, right? We've seen how this team can play without them, and really bringing them back should only improve, right? It should not lead to a step back in any way, shape, or form. So if they do take a step back with these two guys on the ice, you have to then start to wonder what's like. You start to kind of put pieces of the puzzle together a little bit more.
Well, I tell you what, the trade Marner, trade Rielly crowd is going to be loud today.
It was already kind of loud on the Discord. I don't know if you saw.
I saw it. I don't personally have time for that take because, it is bizarre to me that Mitch Marner is like a Selke finalist. Yet somehow it's like, oh, the guy can't play defense, or, he cheats too much on offense. He's a liability defensively. It's like, that's a Selke candidate like 3 years in a row now. What are we talking about here? Like, he's an elite penalty killer. Mitch Marner is not a defensive deficiency. And I do hope, though, that he does commit to playing that simple style of hockey. And kind of help out those blue liners, help with the breakout, and make things a lot more streamlined and connected, which was very successful tonight. All right, let's take a break, and we'll come back. We'll get to the 3 stars of the game, and then we'll kind of dig into the Morgan Rielly verdict. We now know how many games Morgan Rielly has been suspended for, and what we make of the official number. We'll get to that in just a moment. You're listening to the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's podcast is brought to you by Game Time. You shouldn't have to worry when you buy tickets to the next big event. Game Time is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views your receipt, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase, and they're obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets. With the Game Time guarantee, it means that you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. It's Mike DiStefano and Dave Morassutti. We are your hosts here on the Locked On Leafs podcast. You can find the show wherever you find your podcast at. You can also subscribe to us on YouTube as well. We got new episodes coming out each weekday morning, Monday through Friday. So hopefully you enjoy what you're hearing. If you have not yet subscribed, we ask that you give us a shot and let us know down below. What are your thoughts on tonight's game? Do you think that has to be the new standard going forward for the Toronto Maple Leafs? Let us know in the comment section down below. And is Bobby McMann a staple in the lineup going forward? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that one as well. I'm sure he'll come up as we get to our 3 stars of the game. So the Leafs with a 4-1 victory over the St. Louis Blues. No Marner, no Rielly, no Tavares, no problem. They still get the victory by banding together. And it's almost like I want to give the whole team like number 1 star, realistically, because I thought everybody was pretty good tonight. I can't think of a single person that actually was a detriment to the team. I thought everyone was pretty solid. That being said, I did somewhat have 3 stars here that I've put into a list, Dave. So we'll get to it. Who's your 3rd star of the game?
I'm going to go with the line of Robertson, Bertuzzi, and Domi. I thought they did everything but score tonight.
Yeah. Oh, and they had so many great A chances too.
The Bertuzzi chance where he has Binnington going one way, he's got as good of a chance to score, and the pucks just went, psych, we're going to go to the left.
Oh, gutting. And even like the Domi one, right? Domi play, and Nick Robertson had a really good opportunity in the 3rd period as well. Yeah, they all 3 of them had a really good chance to bury tonight. And the snake bittenness continues for Tyler Bertuzzi. The haircut certainly did absolutely nothing for Tyler Bertuzzi's goal scoring woes. He's now gone 30 games, which is 1 goal in this 30-game stretch. It's tough, man. It's tough, and he's got to be gripping a stick. I mean, that's probably the reason why he went wide left on that open cage. I did see, though, it looks like he's been putting in a little extra skills work in practice in and around the net, hoping that he can, develop that finishing touch again, refine something, get him some confidence. Hopefully that results in a goal here at some point. But yes, I did think that those guys were also excellent tonight, which is why I had Nick Robertson kind of starred as a little extra special as my 3rd star tonight. Thought he had a terrific game. Didn't finish, wasn't able to score. He had a couple shots on net. But what I really liked about Nick Robertson was his play off the puck. I thought he was all over the place in a good way. Like, he was everywhere. He was a puck hound, and a couple of times, he really, really fought back and a couple big back checks to take away scoring opportunities and break up rush chances and take pucks away. And that's really what Nick Robertson has to keep doing if he wants to keep showing Sheldon Keefe that he belongs in this lineup on a nightly basis, and maybe even push him up the lineup a little bit now if he can show that he's willing to play on both sides of the ice. So I thought he was somebody too who, when in the defensive end, had a lot of speed and pressure on the puck carriers as well, which forced some turnovers. So I thought Nick Robertson had himself a fantastic game tonight. So I gave him a special shout out. But you're right, that whole line as a whole definitely deserving of a star. Your 2nd star, Dave.
I'm going to go with William Nylander. I don't know how this guy scored that goal, but he did.
That was a good bounce. We call that a lucky bounce. Bertuzzi could use one of those.
Yeah, it's almost like, hey, well, can you like just tell hockey guys to spread some of that love to Bert? He would really appreciate it. But I thought he was excellent tonight. Getting his chance to go up back with Matthews and Nyes didn't look out of place, in my opinion.
He did look pretty good. Well, when you say that, are you hinting towards something here, Paul?
Potentially. We always know. Look, it's been made very known on this podcast. We are very much preferred to see Nylander with Matthews over Marner.
Yes, and Marner with Tavares.
Yes.
Yes, we do think that those are the better pairings. That is the groupthink here on the Locked On Leafs podcast between you and I. I know I'm not going to put you on an island. I'm with you on that one. And yes, they looked good again tonight. While Marner and Tavares watch from the booth. It's not fair. They were sick, but yeah, you know what I'm saying. Yeah, Willie was good as well. And he had to come up and play on the penalty kill with Marner out and won a couple faceoffs too. Yeah, I thought he was terrific. I cheated. I completely cheated on my second star. I know, shocker, but I gave it to just team defense. Like, how can you not give a shout out to the way that the team played defensively? They only gave up 15 shots on net, only had 8 high danger chances that they gave up all game long. That's in all strengths, and that's even a couple of power plays that they gave up too. It's including those. And I just look at the way that the forwards came back and helped, really pressured puck carriers, forced turnovers. The way that the blue liners were getting in front of pucks, a couple of block shots. I thought that the team as a whole played excellent defensively. And then, just even on the penalty kill, there's that penalty kill after the Max Domi penalty, which, again, man, Jake McCabe, this guy can't catch a break when it comes to taking hits that do not get called for whatever reason, but then 2 seconds later you call Domi for a very similar hit from behind. Anyways, either call them both or call neither is my opinion on that one. Regardless, they killed it off, and I think they had the best chance. It was like a power kill. They had the best chance. Noah Gregor had an unbelievable opportunity. Noah Gregor gets an honorable mention for me as well, by the way, for the way that he played tonight. Thought that he was unbelievable. He had like 5 or 6 hits, 2 or 3 grade A chances, including that one that we were just talking about on the penalty kill, in all alone. Imagine how pissed Keefe would have been to have a guy in all alone like that. He would not have been happy. Nope. And I would imagine that the Drew Bannister was not too pleased about that either on the other side there. But I just thought defensively the team was honestly real solid. I think as a whole, what was the expected goals that they gave up? 1.45 expected goals tonight, which might be a season low. I'm going to double check that, but that may be a season low for the Maple Leafs in their defensive effort tonight.
Like the defensive effort, it was apparent right from the start. They knew that, honestly, and we keep saying it, the best way for them to play defense is to play better, just control the puck offensively, right? Don't give teams free opportunities to go down the other way. Pressure them in their own zone, because we know the Leafs have really struggled in their own zone for extended periods. So do the work on the other side and you'll be rewarded for it, right? And that's what we saw with the forechecks and everything like that.
I have confirmed that was the best defensive effort in terms of expected goals against that the Maple Leafs had all season, at 1.45 goals against through the 60 minutes with all strengths. Funny enough, the previous best was the 6-5 loss to the Blue Jackets. What's the previous best defensive effort? Funny enough, that was I think the game where like Ilya Samsonov really fell apart right before the new year, before he went hasta la bye-bye for about a week or so. But Samsonov's another guy, like, wasn't tested a whole lot tonight, but another start, only gave up 1 goal, made the stops he had to. I think we're getting to a point where it's like Sammy's back. Like Sammy, I think Sammy's back now. You know, like you're comfortable with him in net. He's not a top 5 goaltender, top 10 goaltender in the league. He's not a guy who you look at in the ilk of a Markstrom or a Hellebuck or anything like that. But he's a guy who you're now comfortable when you hear Samsonov's getting the start. You should feel good about it, the way that he's been playing since he returned from his little hiatus there about a month ago now.
Yeah, I thought about initially giving him a start, but I'm like, it's a tough game when you only face 15 shots. I know sometimes the goalie's dream to not be peppered all night, but it's also like, you can go a long time without facing a shot, and the focus might not be there. But yeah, I know. We see the difference now with Samsonov. He's whatever they did during that time that he was away. Give all the credit to the whole staff.
Yeah, Curtis Sanford, I think, had played a big part in it, the goalie coach for Toronto. The number one star, our number one Valentine from the game. Who was it, Dave?
It's, if you look at the show notes, if you're watching on YouTube, Bobby McMann.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right. Is that what you're gonna put for the thumbnail?
No.
Okay. I like this one. Next man up, but with 2 N's.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah, consider that for the thumbnail.
It's funny that I know we talked about him in the first part, but like, what a game from Bobby McMann. This is the Bobby McMann that was advertised, during his time with the Marlies that we've been kind of waiting for.
Yeah.
A big body. I think he had like 5 or 6 hits tonight. The goals he scored, like the first goal, that's a goal we've been wanting to see from more players on this team. Bearing your shoulder down, going to the net, and just doing what it takes to score.
Take the second one, fella.
Yeah, and then the second one, I don't know how that shot went in. I'm not gonna ask because it went
turn and fire, buddy. Turn and fire. That's it.
But again, it's simple. Put the puck on net. Sometimes good things happen when you put the puck on net. And this is a player that, when I saw that he wasn't going to play tonight, I was disappointed, right? Because I think Bobby McMann is more than just a guy that should be in and out of the lineup. The problem is they're playing him in a 4th line role, and he's a guy that you can see now probably could excel with more responsibilities. I think he's
possibly
look, is he going to score 3 every night? No. I mean, maybe, but
I would guess not. If I had,
I would guess not. But this is a player that, let's see what he can do with more opportunity, right? Let's not just revert him back to the 4th line. Have him play on that 3rd line. Give it some run, right? And see if you have something.
So what's your 3rd line look like then? I guess McMann, Domi, and Robertson?
Yeah, why not? Because it was Gregor for the longest time, and I just don't know if Gregor is that guy, right? You've got the speed. No, you have Domi with the speed, Robertson with the speed. You know what McMann has that Gregor doesn't have? It's a little bit of size, right? And apparently a little more finish too.
Yeah. 3 goals tonight. The Hattie, first career hat trick for Bobby McMann. Even the hat trick goal, just didn't even mean to. That's just being rewarded for making a good, smart defensive play, right? Just he was out there killing off the final minute of the game, which is a testament to how good of a game he had and the trust that he had earned throughout the night from Sheldon Keefe, right? Went from not even being in the lineup to, all right, it's the final minute of the game. Bobby, get out there. Maybe some of it had to do with trying to get him a hat trick, but still had faith that they would be able to get it done. And Bobby McMann, just made a good chip off the boards, but got the right angle, put enough mustard on it, and it just squeaked down the ice. And
I can't remember whoever was trying to come back. I'll give him give him a medal for the effort there, because he was close.
He tried. He was close. He ultimately shoved it in at the end there. because it was going slow, and then all of a sudden it just like right into the back of the net.
He helped guide it in.
Yeah. I think it would have got there anyways, like if it would have got a second longer. But Bobby McMann, certainly the difference in this game. I mean, it's a 4-1 game, 3-goal difference in the scoreboard. Well, who scored 3 goals? Bobby McMann. So he definitely gets our first star, our number 1 Valentine from the game. And that's the only Valentine's theme thing that we're going to do on today's podcast. Hopefully everyone's having a terrific Valentine's Day. Who's not having a terrific one? It's probably Morgan Rielly, who just got suspended. We'll come back. We will tell you how many games and the reasoning as to why Morgan Rielly will be not in the lineup for the foreseeable future. So we'll explain all of that next. I'm Mike DiStefano with Dave Morassutti. You're listening to the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel. It's North America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all of your favorite NHL players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook of the Locked On Network. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano and Dave Morassutti. So it was an interesting day. Like, obviously, we had got word early in the morning that what was supposed to be an in-person hearing for Morgan Rielly in New York City turned into a Zoom call when all said and done due to some inclement weather in New York. They didn't want to travel down there via plane, or I'm not sure if they were even going to be able to get there due to the snow that was impending in New York City. So they did it via Zoom. It started about 1 o'clock, and I think it ended around 3:30-ish. It took a little bit. Morgan Rielly and the Maple Leafs brass pled their case as to why it should not be a lengthy suspension. But ultimately, the Department of Player Safety came down with the verdict, and he got 5 games. 5 games is what Morgan Rielly got for his retaliation cross-check on Ridley Gregg. Game 1 was obviously tonight, so only 4 more games remaining. But 5 games is the total. Can we live with that, Dave? What do you think?
Choice, unfortunately. Like, I know that he has 48 hours to appeal. That appeal is probably going to take, by the time it's all said and done, likely the full length of the suspension.
Like the appeal process, for those who are wondering, is quite a lengthy process. So if he does appeal, which they very well might, Sheldon Keefe post-game said that Brad Treliving was going to address the media about it on Wednesday. So I'm sure we'll have more on this on tomorrow's show. But I would imagine they do. But even if they do appeal it, it's going to take longer than the 5 games to get an answer back from Gary Bettman on this appeal process, potentially. So there's a good chance that regardless, even if they appeal it and it gets taken down a game or two, it'll take 5 games for that situation to unfold. It usually does take a long time for that to happen. So if they do appeal it, it pretty much just get money back in his pocket. He will lose $195,000 due to this suspension, though. That's how much money he'll be missing out on. Dave, why don't you kind of go through what the league or what the Department of Player Safety's reasoning was and how they came up with the 5-game verdict?
Yeah, so George Peros in the video, the player safety video explaining the decision, said, "This is not the case of 2 players mutually jousting where both players could reasonably expect escalating contact for both players' sticks to come up high. This is not also not an inadvertent or accidental use of the stick while leveraging for body position or for other hockey purposes. This play occurs well after the goal has been scored late in the game with the score out of reach and for the sole purpose of retribution." So right there, they're basically saying the intent for Rielly was to basically react to a play with after the goal has been scored. So they've already kind of did the intent part. Rielly pursues Greg for some time and has sufficient opportunity to engage him in a different manner or ensure this cross-check is delivered solely to the body. In short, this is not a hockey play. This is an intentional forceful strike to an opponent's head using a stick as a weapon to exact retribution well after a goal has been scored. And I think that's the part there that got him in trouble, right?
Yeah.
He could have done it differently, but he didn't, and he got him in the head. If he went any other part of the body, we're not having this discussion, right? And that was kind of our opinion from the beginning. Either drop the gloves or don't get the guy up high. That's why nobody was arguing about the suspension part. It's just, is it 5 games? Like, that's
still seems excessive. It still, to me, does seem like I understand that they're talking about how it's after the play. Rielly had to travel a distance. He had a chance not to make the play, and then he used the stick as a weapon. I mean, we've seen multiple sticks use his weapon in a much more ferocious way that got less calls. And to me, that's worse than the long skate that Morgan Rielly took after a goal. Like, you know what I mean? Like, ultimately, I think the infraction shouldn't necessarily be whether or not it was a long skate or in between whistles or in the heat of a battle. It's, I mean, which is worse, which is one that's more likely to injure someone, which is more intent to injure. That one I didn't think was all that intentional. Not to the extent that, like a David Perron was, and it didn't get the full 6 games that Perron got for his situation, but we're gonna have to live with it. Obviously, game 1 didn't matter. Apparently, they got the full 2 points, and luckily, if you look at the schedule, it's not terrible for the next 4 games. They've got Philly coming to town, they've got Anaheim, and then they go out to St. Louis, and they got Arizona. So, not the 4 most difficult opponents. So they could be games that, not to call them winnable, but they are winnable games.
You don't lose them against the upcoming games against the Golden Knights and Avalanche, right?
Well, and that's when he comes back, right? So that he comes back, he'll be ready to go for that game against the Golden Knights after Arizona. So that'll be good timing for Mo to return to the lineup. We'll see.
The part that gets me, though, was when he said they use it as using the stick as a weapon. We legitimately saw earlier this year Jacob Trouba swinging his stick like a baseball bat, catching a player in the head. You know what Jacob Trouba got for that?
A fine.
A $5,000 fine.
Yeah.
For using his stick as a weapon.
Yeah, went full Happy Gilmore on Trent Frederick's head.
And look, somebody said, Frederick grabbed him and he was trying to get him off. Morgan Rielly went to go and hit the guy and got him in the head. To me, it's just like you're saying you use it as a weapon when I've seen guys use sticks as a weapon in this case. This is where the 5 games, to me, I get it because the in-person hearing led me to that path that he was going to get around that mark. He wasn't going to get the 3 that everyone said he was going to get. If he was going to get 3, they wouldn't have done the in-person hearing.
Everyone knew once the in-person hearing was, announced that it was going to be 5 or 6. It wasn't necessarily, what I thought it was going to be. It's what I thought it should have been, I think is what most people were arguing. And it should have been only a 2 or 3 game suspension when you look at, other situations like this. Like there's no precedence of this necessarily being a 5-game suspension. And trust me, you go look online, you can find dozens of 1-game, 2-game, 3-game fines where people are using sticks as weapons in a much more ferocious way. The only thing is, like, it wasn't between whistles, like it wasn't part of the game and in the heat battle. Like that is the one part that I think, it's tough to argue.
Yeah,
obviously, but still, man, there's actions out there, or there's consequences to actions. And I even heard Braden Shen was on Leafs Morning Take today with our boy Alberga, Even he said like that was that was an embarrassing move by Ridley Gregg.
He
And
said I would have had the same reaction. The reaction was
yeah,
justified. He says it's unfortunately he got him caught up high, and I don't think he meant to do it. And I think
which
that's
I don't think he did either. And I would imagine that was part of the appeal process for Morgan Rielly, is that the intent wasn't there. He put his arm up and he had to go over the arm, and that's, rode up. And that's just what happens in situations like that. But ultimately, obviously, it didn't matter, right? Like, still got 5 games. And they could appeal. They have, 48 hours for Morgan Rielly and the NHLPA to file an appeal to Gary Bettman. Doubtful he budges, to be honest with you. Rarely do they budge. But there was an interesting tweet that came around yesterday. Like, we were talking about like the Toronto tax when it came to suspensions, and the controversy, or maybe conspiracy might be a term that you could use to discuss whether or not Toronto gets the suspended more often or more harshly. But Jeff Fayette put out a tweet, and essentially it was a chart of how many teams have been suspended since George Peros took over the Department of Player Safety, how many in-person hearings there have been, how many games the team has missed due to suspensions. And the Toronto Maple Leafs are at the top of the list for all of those. All of those. Last time I checked, Toronto's not really a dirty team or a physical team. So it is kind of bizarre that of all teams that are at the top of the list there in terms of suspensions, in terms of like single game suspensions, multi-game suspensions, in-person hearings. So here it is. The Leafs have been suspended 10 times, more than any other team under George Peros, and 3 of them have been in person. No other team has had 3 in-person hearings, and it's totaled 30 games altogether, which again, more than anyone except the Capitals. But I believe one of those was like a 20-game suspension from
Tom Wilson.
So you take away that 120 gamer, it's totally different. So yeah, there's the proof. Somebody had said like, oh, where's the proof about that? Again, some of those are warranted suspensions. Don't get me wrong. Like, Bunting's was a warranted suspension. A couple of the Kadri hits were warranted. Matthews was warranted. This one was warranted as well, just not 5 games. You know what I mean? So it's an extra 2 or 3 games than what I thought was appropriate. And I think that's all that conversation was trying to get through to people. But I don't know. Maybe it is a little bit of blue and white disease thinking that way. Who knows?
My final thought on this is George Peros better be careful now, because and Rachel Dory, I give her a lot of credit for putting this out. Leafs fans are going to look at every single incident just like this going forward.
This is precedent. This is new precedence.
Exactly.
This has to be new precedence. If there's another incident where it's after the whistle, right? After the whistle, and it's not in the middle of a battle or anything, and someone comes out of their way to cross-check someone in the head, there better be 5 games going forward for anyone. I don't care if you're an out-of-market team, if you're Nashville, if you're Carolina, if you're the Rangers, if you're Boston, if you're Toronto, if you're Montreal, it don't matter. At this point, what that is, the reasoning as to why they gave him a 5-game suspension, if all of those apply to anyone in the league going forward, it damn well better be 5 games. That's the new precedent you want to set? Sure, I can live with it as long as there's consistency to it. But guess what, Dave? I have very little faith that that's going to be the case. Very little faith.
As we have just shown, other teams don't exactly get the same weight of suspension that the Leafs have gotten over the years. But look, hey, maybe people learn from their mistakes, and maybe we're going to start seeing changes in that regard. Now precedent's been set, and people are going to hold them accountable. That's going to be the difference there.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Leafs Nation will definitely be holding George Peros accountable. That is for sure. Anything else you wanted to get off your chest? Any final comments to make for today's pod before we log off?
Well, Phil Kessel is in Vancouver. I don't know if you saw.
I did.
Working out with Abbotsford. So it looks like Phil has a potential avenue to get back into the NHL.
Yeah, I had seen a little bit of discourse about this online. Rick Dollawall was talking about this over the weekend, how there was mutual interest in Rick Tocchet, known as the Kessel Whisperer, won a couple of cups with him as an assistant in Pittsburgh, where Jim Rutherford was also in Pittsburgh at the time too. So there are a couple of there's definitely some links there when it comes to Phil Kessel. So I would not be surprised to see him end up in Vancouver. I will say this, though. I don't want it to become a sideshow, much like the Keith Yandle thing, because remember, Phil is the current Iron Man. He's played the more games than anyone else in a row in the sport of hockey. He currently has that streak. The first game that he's on the roster and scratched, that streak ends. If he's signing in the NHL, whether it's with Vancouver or any other team, I think he's got to be okay with ending that streak, or else I don't believe a team will bring him in. And I would imagine that conversation has already taken place with Vancouver, and he's open to it. Like, he still has the record. It's not like the record's going to go away. He just can't.
I don't know if it's ever going to be broken. It's going to be tough.
The craziest thing, I was thinking about that today, the craziest part about that record is that he dodged COVID. Like 2 COVID seasons, dodged them all. He had a baby. And I remember the story when he was in Arizona and literally played one shift, and the owner had a bird waiting for him, played one shift and left to go and be with his wife for the birth of his child. And then was 2 days later, I believe, in Toronto to play his next game.
I'm pretty sure that was a game I was at.
Where he came back and played the next game?
Well, he was supposed to play, like he played. I'm trying to remember now if it was in Toronto that it happened or if it was he came back for Toronto. I just remember him
back for Toronto, I believe.
And I was there for that game. I just remember I'm just like, this guy, just whatever he needs to do.
He had a baby 24 hours ago, and he's like, I got a streak. I got to go. I got to go, kid. Unbelievable. I mean, Phil's such a great character. It'd be great if Phil Kessel ends up back in the NHL. Vancouver's a good team. Toss him into the mix there. I don't think would hurt them at the very least. Worst case scenario, I'm sure it'd be a league minimum deal. Worst case scenario, if it doesn't work out, you waive him and he retires off into the sunset. So yeah, we will see what happens there. All right, that'll do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all podcast platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti, and follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. We'll be back with another episode for you guys tomorrow. But until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.